If two pieces of metal touch in space, they will melt together and become one. It's something called cold welding or contact welding. This doesn't happen on Earth because the atmosphere puts a layer of oxidized material between the surfaces, which makes the welding process impossible. This might seem like it would be a big problem for satellites, space stations and the like, but because the metals come from Earth, they're already coated with the material. In fact, the only evidence this process actually takes place have come from controlled experiments deliberately designed to provoke it. Most of us think we know the planets of our solar system. We have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. We also have Pluto, but sadly as of 2006 it's no longer classified as a planet. Instead, it's now a member of the new dwarf planet category. But what if I told you that Pluto is not the only dwarf planet? For example, there's Ceres, Eris, Makemake, Haumea, Sedna, Orcus, Quaoar, Ixion, Verona, Chaos and many more which has not been given any official names yet. Ceres is especially interesting as it's orbiting the Sun between Mars and Jupiter. When you mention black holes, the first thing people often imagine is something like this. An almost two-dimensional disc-shaped object that pulls everything in on one side with nothing appearing on the other. This is of course all thanks to the interpretations of black holes by popular sci-fi movies and TV shows. In reality, a black hole is not much unlike a star or planet in the sense that it's actually a sphere with an immense gravitational field that pulls everything in from all directions. The sun, you know that thing that's keeping you alive and shit, is actually not yellow. It only appears yellow because of the Earth's atmosphere. In reality, the sun outputs all colors in the visible spectrum at almost an equal intensity, which means the true color of the sun is actually white. The tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream," from the movie Aliens from 1979 is entirely true, as sound waves cannot travel in a vacuum. Sound waves, unlike radio waves for example, needs particles to travel through. But if you ever find yourself in space, with a spacesuit, with a friend in another spacesuit, and you realize that your radios isn't working. I mean, we're all gonna end up in that situation at some point. There's another way to communicate. By bumping our helmets against one another. When the helmets touch, they act as a bridge for the sound waves to travel through, and so you'd be able to talk naturally without using any radios or anything else. And by naturally, I mean screaming like you've gone insane. Stars can be freaking weird. For example, there's a star out there with the memorable name of WISE 1828 plus 2650. But it's not the name which is interesting, rather how cold it is. It's what's called a brown dwarf star, and it's the coldest star ever found, with a temperature range of -23 to 127 degrees Celsius. Yeah, a star that can be colder than you are. Another weird star is BPM 37093. Gotta love these names. But the star's core is made of diamond. 10 billion trillion carats of diamond to be precise. And neutron stars is even weirder. Neutron stars are so dense that a single teaspoon of its material would weigh over 100 million tons. Alien life is bound to exist somewhere in the universe, but so far there's no evidence of that, at least not that the public know of anyway. However, what we do know is that there are planets out there that has the possibility to sustain life, so-called habitable exoplanets. So far we've found around 50 such planets, with some being as close as only 20 light years away. But as of yet, we have no way of confirming if these planets actually do support life, only that they have the unique attributes to possibly do so. In April 2010, radio astronomers reported an unknown object in the galaxy M82. The object had, seemingly out of nowhere, started sending out strange radio waves, which did not look like anything seen anywhere in the universe before. There have been several theories about the nature of this unknown object, but currently, no theory entirely fits the observed data. Did you know that our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is right now colliding with another much smaller galaxy? Well, it is. The galaxy is known as Sagittarius Dwarf Elliptical Galaxy and is currently about 70,000 light-years away from Earth. But no worries, it's very unlikely that a star or a planet will crash into one another as they're separated by many light-years of empty space. The same thing will happen in a few billion years from now when the Andromeda Galaxy will collide with our own and will create a much larger Milky-Dromeda Galaxy. UY Scuti is so far the largest star found. If it was placed in the center of our solar system, it would engulf every planet all the way out to Jupiter. IC1101 is one of the largest known galaxies in the universe. It holds around 100 trillion stars. To put that in perspective, our own galaxy, the Milky Way, only contains a measly 400 billion stars. But the absolute largest and most massive object in the observable universe was discovered in November of 2013. It's called the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. The structure is a so-called galactic filament, or in other words, a huge group of galaxies assembled by gravity. The structure is so huge that scientists can't even explain its existence. It's 10 billion light-years away, which means that we see the structure as it was 10 billion years ago, and the universe is only about 13.7 billion years old. That means the structure had a little more than 3 billion years to form, which scientists say is just not possible. For comparison, our own solar system took around 4.6 billion years to form. The structure is basically too large to exist. As many can think of, the most wonderful to others, a place we haven't really visited beyond low Earth orbit for over 30 years. This is space. We don't exactly know how many stars there are in the universe. We can make estimates though, but these estimations are limited by the technology available to us today. Once new and better technology comes along, we'll be able to see even further out into space and discover even more stars, and thus the estimated star count increases. But it's quite beautiful though, isn't it? Just seemingly flying among the stars like this, at 100 megaparsecs per second. Except what you're seeing is not stars. These are galaxies, each galaxy containing millions, billions, and even trillions of stars, most of which have their own planetary system with celestial bodies circling around. It truly gives you a sense of scale. How small we are, just a tiny speck in this sea of space dust. But as we can't know for certain how many stars and or galaxies there are, let's take what we do know. And what we do know is that the observable universe contains at least 170 billion galaxies. We also know that our own average-sized galaxy, the Milky Way, has around 400 billion stars, so we can use that as a template. Now take 170 billion galaxies, multiply that with 400 billion stars, and we get the number 68 sextillion possible stars in the cosmos. Black holes. One of the most mysterious objects in the universe. Everything about them is just taken to the extreme in one way or another. They twist and bend space and time around them. Some have been found to rotate close to half the speed of light. They can be smaller than an atom or billions of times more massive than the largest known star. They even stop time. And if you wanted to destroy one, well, you can't. Whatever you throw at it will just be added to its mass and energy. Lasers, bullets, nuclear warheads, a unicorn, the Avengers, a star, a galaxy, Google+, another black hole. It would all just be consumed. But they're not completely indestructible though. They have one sworn enemy, one weakness: time. Wait long enough and eventually black holes evaporate because of something called Hawking radiation. This radiation causes the black hole to slowly lose mass over long periods of time. In part 1, I talked about the largest known galaxy in the observable universe, IC 1101, which is estimated to contain about 100 trillion stars. On the other side of the spectrum, the smallest galaxy found so far is called Segway 2 and only contains the tiny amount of 1,000 stars. The galaxy is also very, very old. The stars are believed to have formed more than 12 billion years ago, meaning that they were most likely among the first stars to have formed in the universe. In 2023, we might have a reality TV show on Mars. This is if the Mars One project is successful. Mars One is an organization with the goal of establishing a permanent colony on Mars. Only last year, people could apply to be one of the colonists to go there and thus leaving Earth forever to spend the rest of their lives on Mars. Over 200,000 people applied, but only 4 carefully selected individuals will be sent there in 2023, and every step of the crew's journey will be documented. And every 2 years, 4 additional colonists will be sent to Mars, and the colonies plan to expand this way over time. The ISS is pretty cool and all, but you know what would be even more awesome? A big ass fucking donut in space. No, I'm not even kidding here. That's at least what NASA thought would be a great idea back in 1975 when it was proposed to build a donut-shaped space station codenamed Stanford Taurus that would simulate artificial gravity and, almost like a little side note, support over 10,000 people. So, of course, they soon realized that going from 0 manned space stations to a space city of 10,000 people was kind of a big step. Not to mention that it would take decades to get the material needed up there and more money than the whole economy of the United States. After NASA had successfully landed on the moon in 1969 with Apollo 11, several other Apollo missions took place all the way up to the final Apollo 17 mission before the program was cancelled. But that was actually not the plan. NASA had already prepared for Apollo 18, 19 and 20 missions. After Apollo 17, the plan was to, get this, colonize the moon, with 6 people living on the lunar surface for up to 180 days. But the reason this never took place is, of course, almost as always, money. A lot of you have probably, at some point at least, imagined what it would be like to be living in space. And well, it would be pretty fucking uncomfortable. First of all, you'd have to work out every single day for several hours to prevent your bones and muscles from shrinking due to the lack of gravity. This includes your heart, which would become weaker and smaller due to the same effect. You'd also become taller in a very painful way, as your intervertebral discs that cushion your spine would slowly drift away. You would see bright light flashes as you close your eyes because of the radiation that the Earth's atmosphere normally filters out. You will have trouble tasting things and feeling sick because of fluids in your body acting really weird in 0G. Bacteria also starts going crazy and becomes much more effective, while your immune system starts weakening. Basically, if you get sick, you can die. And as if that weren't enough reasons to not want to live in space, you can't have sex either. Like ever. Without gravity, your blood pressure decreases, so for guys it just becomes impossible to get it up. A common myth about space that's often seen in movies and TV series is that asteroid fields are full of asteroids very close together, and traveling through one is next to impossible, or at least very dangerous. However, this isn't true at all. Space is gigantic, and asteroid fields are no different, where the flying chunks of rocks are separated by huge distances. In fact, when NASA sent a probe through the asteroid belts in our own solar system, it had a chance of 1 in a billion to actually get hit by an asteroid. A dream of many, including myself I must say, is the prospect of someday being able to visit other stars, other planets, and maybe, just maybe, we'll find that we're not alone in this universe. But with the knowledge we have today, just how likely is that? Will we ever be able to take a quick road trip to Kepler 22b and check in at the local hotel for 50 space coins? Well, we can never know for certain, but unfortunately the chances of that seem very slim at best. The biggest issue is that to get anywhere on such a large scale, we need technology that can somehow overcome the light barrier. And when I say overcome, I mean we really need to go much faster than the speed of light. The closest star, Alpha Centauri, is only 4.2 light years away, meaning it would take 4.2 years to get there if we could travel at the speed of light. And I'm not even accounting for how long it would take to start and slow down during this journey, time dilation, and the fact that it would take another 4.2 years if we wanted to go back or send some sort of message to people back on Earth. And with the current understanding we have of the universe, faster than light travel just isn't possible, at least not in the traditional sense. We have not observed anything going faster than the speed of light. So what options do we have? Well, believe it or not, but there is in fact a slight possibility that a version of the warp drive from Star Trek could become a reality sometime in the future. It's called the Alcubierre drive, and the way it works in theory is that it wouldn't move the ship at all, but instead moves and bends the space around the ship, and thus overcoming the light barrier without breaking any physical laws. Basically, instead of moving across a plane, you move parts of the plane to take you across it. But as you can understand, developing a technology that could bend space and time itself is not an easy task, if even possible. But at the moment, if we want to go faster than the speed of light, while also overcoming complicated issues such as time travel, the theoretical Alcubierre drive seemed to be our best bet. Given the inconceivable amount of galaxies, stars, and planets in the universe, we can almost safely say that life on other planets does exist. Sure, until we can actually prove that point, there's that slight chance that there is nobody out there. However, when or maybe if we ever do meet aliens, what will they be like? Obviously we can't know, but we can make educated guesses. A good way to start is to look at ourselves. What do humans do when we find new land, people, and or creatures we have never encountered before? Well, for example, if we look at when Christopher Columbus first discovered North America, it didn't exactly end too well for the Native Americans. Basically, throughout history, humans have conquered and taken over land and resources. So if aliens that finds Earth are anything like humans, it's most likely going to end very badly for us. However, another point to consider is the fact that if aliens have the technology for interstellar and maybe even intergalactic travel, they might not be very interested in us and, from their perspective, our very primitive world. Neil deGrasse Tyson explained it using a pretty great analogy. You don't walk by a worm and wonder what it's thinking or try to communicate with it. No, you either walk right past it or step
on the worm. In other words, if aliens ever do find Earth, or maybe they already have, we might simply be too primitive for them to even consider communicating with us. You can also look at this from the other perspective. What if we humans in, say, a few hundred years or so have become so technologically advanced that we are now the aliens visiting more primitive worlds? And to be honest, this isn't that unlikely. Just look at how much technologically advanced we've become since the Industrial Revolution. It only took about 3 generations for us to go from barely having electricity to having what allows you to watch this video right now, the internet. So what would we do? What would an even more advanced human civilization do if we found primitive life on another planet and actually had the means to visit? Well, there is something called the zoo hypothesis, which argues that intelligent alien life ignores Earth to allow for natural evolution and cultural development. Basically, they observe and maybe study us from afar and are deliberately hiding from us because they do not want to disturb our development as a species. And it's likely humans would do something similar if we found ourselves in such a situation in the future. It's possible that life could exist on Venus, most likely in the form of bacteria or something very small, but life nonetheless. What's interesting though is that it wouldn't be found on the surface, which is 460 degrees Celsius. No, but in the clouds high up in the Venusian atmosphere, where the conditions are actually quite hospitable. The age of the universe and its vast number of stars suggest that unless the Earth is very unusual, life in the universe should be common. But there is something called the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox argues that if there are such high estimates of life in the universe, where is everybody? The basic point of the paradox is this. Our sun is a very young and fairly typical star. There are billions of stars that are billions of years older in our galaxy alone. Surely some of these stars have Earth-like planets. Assuming the Earth is typical, some of these planets have developed intelligent life. And at least a few of these civilizations should have developed the means for interstellar travel. But even if they have a very slow method of interstellar travel, the galaxy could be completely colonized in just a few tens of millions of years. That may sound like much, but given how some of these civilizations could have existed for billions of years, that timescale is nothing. So again, where is everybody? Even though it's unlikely, there's still a possibility that the Earth is the only or one of the very few planets in the universe with intelligent life forms. It's called the rare Earth hypothesis. It suggests that since the development of life on Earth was the result of a long list of geological and astrophysical events, so cosmically random yet so crucially specific, it's unlikely for it to have happened anywhere else in the universe. Thus, there's a slight chance we really are alone. On November 6, 1991, astronomer James Scotty discovered a very strange object now known as 1991 VG. The NEO, or Near-Earth Object, is around 6 to 12 diameters and has a very Earth-like orbit, which is very difficult to explain to be from natural sources and more or less eliminates the possibility of a man-made object. The object also has very rapid changes in brightness, which has led many to believe it could be of artificial origin. Maybe we'll know for sure during its next close approach to the Earth in 2016. In 1984, a team of meteorite hunters found a meteorite now known as Allen Hills 84001. It was blasted off the surface of Mars some 4.5 billion years ago and landed on Earth 13,000 years ago. It's noteworthy because the meteorite may contain fossils of bacteria-like life forms from Mars, which could mean it's the first solid evidence of the existence of alien life. However, after numerous examinations of the meteorite, scientists are skeptical to whether or not the shapes in the rock really are fossils of Martian bacteria. There are thousands of UFO reports every year. Of course, UFO stands for Unidentified Flying Object and does not mean it has to be artificial in origin, and 90% of cases can be explained in one way or another. But the other unexplained 10% are indeed interesting. Such is the case of an event which took place over Los Angeles in 1942, now known as the Battle of Los Angeles. A giant UFO would actually hover over the city and be witnessed by hundreds of observers. There's even photo evidence of the event. What's more is that because this was during World War II, right after Pearl Harbor had been attacked, the military quickly pointed spotlights at the object thinking it might be another attack. Soon after, they began firing and even sent out fighter planes to attack and destroy the UFO. But nothing. The object was hit but didn't seem to take any damage at all. It kept on hovering over the city with the military relentlessly trying to bring it down before vanishing without a trace. The US Air Force later blamed the event on a weather balloon. Make of that what you will. Deinococcus radiodurans is a microbe discovered in 2002 that can, among other things, resist enormous amount of radiation. This type of resistance is unheard of on Earth as it would take several billions of years to develop, leading many to theorize that this microbe might not have originated from Earth. There is something called the Drake equation. It's a formula used to supposedly calculate the number of active alien civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. It works a little something like this. First, the average rate of star formation per year in our galaxy, then the fraction of stars with planets, the average number of planets that can potentially support life, the fraction that can go on to support life, the fraction that can go on to support intelligent life, the fraction of civilizations that develop a technology detectable from space, and length of time such civilizations release detectable signs into space, which would then give you the number of civilizations in our galaxy in which communication might be possible. But as you can see, most of these factors are completely or partly unknown, and thus by changing only one factor just slightly can yield completely different results. So most of what I've said in this video and what you'll hear about aliens in general should be taken with a grain of salt, as it really is just theories and guesswork. Until we find some solid evidence, there is no way of knowing just how common or rare life on other planets really are.